Wire fraud is very much a real problem that does happen. It almost happened to my client last week to the tune of $538,000, but the bank was able to stop the transaction, thank God. That catch, it prevented a complete disaster. In this video, I'm going to tell you what happened and discuss several steps and tips to prevent this tragedy from happening to you. Hi, I'm Jessica Genung with Active Realty. This is a video that we needed to make for my clients to make sure that this doesn't happen to them, but we also wanted to make this information available to everyone. If it prevents even just one person from being a victim of this crime, we will be glad that we shared this terrible situation with everyone. My client was gracious enough to let me share this story with you. So what happened? A week before closing, my client received a fraudulent email asking for closing funds to be wired. This email appeared to come from the escrow officer and looked like just all of the other escrow email change that we had seen throughout the transaction. These fraudsters, they are very good, and they had either hacked into the escrow company system, the lender, or my client's email account. We're not sure. They had the names of all of the parties involved in our transaction, and they had a very close amount of the closing funds that needed to be wired. The email had the exact email signature, font, color, etc. that we had seen all throughout the transaction. All of the parties appeared to be CC'd on the email as well, including myself, Chris, various employees at the escrow company that were on all of the other email chains. However, it was just our names that appeared on the CC line. We were not actually CC'd on the email, although it looked like that we were. The only thing that was different was the escrow officer's email had 2 V's instead of a W in escrow, so this detail was easy to miss. My client engaged with this email, the scammer sent the wire instructions, and my client wired out the $538,000 amount to that receiving bank with the routing and account numbers as she was instructed. An hour and a half after the wire had been sent, the bank noticed a discrepancy in the account numbers because it was going to a different account than the initial deposit. So they flagged the transaction and they stopped the transfer. That bank was Chase Bank, and they are our hero for stopping this disaster. The real wire transfer was not going to take place until the weekend, around the time of the final walkthrough and the document signing appointment. Which leads me to my first red flag for these fraudulent emails. They will often contain a sense of urgency, so be aware of that. In the case of this email, it was suggested to send the payment soon to avoid any delay in closing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So how do we avoid wire fraud? Tip number 1, speak with your real estate agent before sending any funds so that they are aware that you're making a transfer, how much, and when. The buyer and the agent can confirm receipt with the escrow people. If I am your agent, please speak with me before transferring any funds. Tip number 2, call the escrow company to verify the account numbers over the phone. This is the number 1 way that you can avoid wire fraud. You need to look up the escrow company's phone number independently. Do not call a number in an email address. Your agent can look up and give you escrow's phone number. I do this often for my clients. I look up the escrow company online and I give that number to my clients to call and verify the account numbers. This is a common practice for escrow companies to verify the wire transfer account numbers. Tip number 3, after you have successfully transferred your earnest money deposit, save that paper with the wire instructions. You're typically making 2 wires in a real estate transaction. First is your initial earnest money deposit to open escrow and get the process started. In our area, that amount typically ranges between 1% and 3%. Most typically, it's around 1% of the purchase price. The second transfer you will make is the remainder of your down payment and closing costs. This amount is typically much higher than the initial deposit and can often be over $100,000. When you get your final wire instructions, you can compare those instructions to the account numbers that you received for your initial deposit instructions. The funds go to the exact same account, so they should be exactly the same. A side note, oftentimes your wire instructions are going to be included in your loan documents that are given to you by the notary when you have your document signing appointment. These documents, they come directly from the escrow company and they should be secure, but I still recommend calling to verify the account numbers in the same way. Tip number 4, maybe you're asking, can I just avoid doing a wire altogether and bring in a cashier's check or a personal check to escrow? The problem with this is that most escrow companies require the larger closing funds to be sent with a wire. Normally, it's no problem to bring in your initial deposit directly to escrow with a check or a cashier's check, but you do have to do it yourself. Your agent cannot do it for you. We're not allowed to touch the money. You could always ask if you could pay for your final funds with a cashier's check, but oftentimes they say no, but I have seen them allow it on occasion. I will reiterate, most importantly, please speak with your agent before wiring any funds. Hope this video and story is helpful to you, and I will see you next week. Bye.